What is going on? Happy Monday to everyone as you guys start to storm in and we get to see if Rodolfo is first or not. Oh, no. The answer to that is no, because Brandon is in first, but that's okay, Rodolfo. Strong second. You still get a podium, still get the silver. Paxton, of course, you get third. But yes, welcome back to Overreaction Monday on the Texas Longhorns Football Channel. I'm your host, Alma Richardson, without Jeff Ketchum, who will not be here this week. So, Jason, you know what that means? It means a lot of us being able to talk and be uninterrupted. Uninterrupted thoughts, Jason. What's that going to feel like for you?
A lot more conversation for Anwar is what it probably means than a normal Monday overreaction show. So, yeah.
What it means is that I can't fill out my Amazon shopping cart while Ketch is talking, because I just fill out things. I go shopping. And I'm like, oh, I got another 2.5 minutes, because he's like, oh, I want to get your thoughts. I'm like, 2.5 minutes later, okay, let's see if I can find a good deal. Speaking of good deal, just messing with you, Catch. Of course, this show is brought to you by The Rogue Shop. You want a deal, put in the promo code Orangebloods for all your legal CBD, THC, and more. Rogue Shop has changed the lives of everyone in the Orangebloods staff. Ever since Rogue came in our life, Jason, I feel like the arguments have been less. Like, I feel like there's less stress that's everyone, just people getting a good night of sleep, relaxing. You know, I feel it's pretty good.
You know what? I don't know if I should admit this or not. I have not partaken in the Rogue Shop. My wife tells me, nope, you've got too many vices. You stay away from that stuff. But I'm trying to get her to do it, because you told me on more like, you started sleeping so well when you were, this was like a year ago, you told me. It's like, man, and she battles insomnia. And I'm like, man, maybe I need to just get her to watch this video, because I recently told her, Kristen, you need to let me hit up Rogue Shop for you and get you some stuff to help you sleep. So I may be hitting them up pretty soon. I haven't yet, but I may be soon.
We'll get Richard to hook you up with a sample platter, but she gets a couple little gummies. Yeah, dude, you can do whatever you want to do all night long at that point, Jason, because she should be knocked out until about like 7 o'clock. So,
oh, man. I don't know if that's the endorsement she wants.
Yeah, well, that's true too. You know, before we get into the topic, man, I was just kind of curious, Jason. Like, how are you been? I know the family's home. Summer has kind of gotten started. So, like, what have you guys been up to?
You just had to ask, didn't you? What you just had to ask, dude.
Oh,
what are we up to? Trying not to murder pretty much everybody in this household. My son's great. My son came home from Japan, as we've talked about a lot on the modcast. He's great, dude. Like, he's 18. He's a dude. He's pretty easygoing. My daughters, I've got 2 teenage daughters and another that's about to be 12 in 10 days. And man, 2 teenage daughters at home for summer. It'll test your patience on where, I promise you, man. We're trying to teach one of them to drive, and they're both working. We have to take them to work and pick them up, and they don't like us, and we don't like them sometimes. But yeah, happy summer at the Sucumel household. Thanks for asking.
The summer of joy in the Sucumel house quickly wore off, right? Is what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't know if it was ever here, to be honest with you.
Fair enough. So, Jason, I was, it's obviously June, and this is kind of the time where we just kind of start talking. We drop nuggets here and there. Guys are going through summer workouts, and I put a tweet out yesterday, Jason, that I'll be honest. I understand that it's summertime, and so people want anything that's, UT related. So I'm like, every once in a while, you just drop a little breadcrumb, here and there. And I put out a tweet about Quinn, Jason, and you may have been doing stuff. I was pretty busy, Jason. My youngest son turned 5 yesterday, so I was kind of focused on him, the party, and all kind of stuff. Thank God. You should be happy that you're done with trampoline parks and all those kind of things. Like, I'm sure right now your kids just want money and that's it, right? They don't need it.
Money and leave me alone. Yeah, money and let me go hang out with my friends.
Yeah, so you can understand. Remember the days back when it's like, I got to pick up the cake. Oh damn, I forgot to get a knife. Oh damn, I got to get a candle. Like, do they have plates there? Like, what is involved? And all these other things, and the takeaway bags for all the other kids, like all these little things, right? So I was focused on that yesterday, but I did put something out about Quinn. And one of the things I had found out pretty recently, Jason, was, that he had basically, one person had described him as shredded, saying he had a six pack. He weighs 210 pounds, was listed at 204 in the spring game. Kind of an innocent tweet, I would say. At the end of the day, I thought, until I look now, 316,000 views, Jason, 900 likes. And I realized, okay, some of it's just the off season. But Jason, we'll get into a little bit more of the details of Quinn. But I've reported, I'm sure you've heard things about how Quinn is looking better this off season, worked on different things, physically fit, so on and so forth. I guess the question as we start with the overreaction Monday is that, are you buying the hype that there is a new Quinn Ewers that's out there?
Yeah, you know what? I did see your tweet on one. I didn't realize it gained that much traction. Like you, I thought it was a informational tweet, but pretty harmless, if you will. But yeah, I guess like you said, it's off season, and anytime you're talking about the Quinn Ewers and the University of Texas quarterback, it's going to generate some discussion. To answer your question, am I buying the hype? I'm kind of I don't know if I'd say infamous, notorious to be the guy that would say, always like, slow down, guys. All right, whatever, slow down. You're getting ahead of yourselves. On this one, Anwar, I am buying the hype. Maybe not to the degree that maybe some of the fan base is, I guess. But, I've said, I don't remember, it was going back on the Modcast a couple months ago, I think. And I don't remember the context of the conversation, but I remember saying then, like, I expect Quinn Ewers to take big steps forward this year. And I expect him to have a big year. I mean, that first year, he played well at times, but let's be honest, there were some struggles and a lot of mediocrity in that first season as a starter, but you kind of expect that. I think from year one to year two, a natural progression. Even before we kind of started hearing all this work he's putting in, I expected a big jump for Quinn Ewers. I think the talent around him is fantastic. Offensive line, wide receiver, tight end talent. I think the running back talent's going to be fine. Obviously, they don't have the guys they had last year, of course, but I think that it'll be fine there. But I do think he's going to take a step forward just based on experience, based on the people around him, based on another year in Sark's offense. But when I hear, Anwar, that he's really putting in the work mentally, physically, obviously physically, as your tweet alluded to, but the mental aspect of it too, which was something we heard last year. He kind of struggled with early on with some of the mental aspect of the position. You factor all that in, the improved play, or improved players around him, the extra year with Sark, just the experience gained last year, the work he's putting in from a physical and mental perspective, I'm fully buying it on where I'll be shocked. I'm like I said, I'm always slow down, guys, slow down. I will be shocked if Quinn Ewers doesn't make significant improvements in his second season as a starter.
The interesting thing for me, Jason, building off of what you said is, Sark, the one thing about Sark, Jason, is that he doesn't always want to name a starter, right? He always talks about the importance of having guys hungry and having guys fighting, and like, why would I tell you something, right now? And he doesn't want to usually answer the question. But when spring was said and done, Jason, he went ahead and put a kibosh on that conversation, right? I mean,
it's the obvious. He's kind of like, all right, we know, you guys know Quinn's a starter. I mean, kind of a throwaway thing, but yeah.
But he could have, Jason. He could have very easily said, when Maalik, he looked, how good he looked. Like, there's still a chance for Maalik to come into this thing. Like,
But any of us have really bought that, though. If he had said that onward, I mean, everybody would have a brain new Quinn Ewers is. Hell, I've got a bet with Alex Dunlap. What 10-1 odds I gave him, right? That Quinn Ewers will be the starter, so he damn well better be the starter.
Did you buy that last year though, that Hudson Card had a chance to start?
Yeah, I absolutely did last year.
You did.
Yeah, I think last year was a different story. You don't replace an incumbent quarterback who was a 5-star number 1 recruit in the country. That's tough. And I get it. Maalik had a really good spring. He had a great spring game. You have Arch Manning coming in, but I just didn't think there's any way they were going to bench a guy who started the entire season last year, aside from the injury games he missed. But last year, I did. Hudson had started some games previously. Quinn was the newcomer. I mean, I always thought it leaned towards Quinn, even though we heard some Hudson Card chatter in fall camp, quite a bit of it, in fact. But yes, I did think Hudson Card had a chance to be the starter. I didn't think anybody was beating out Quinn for 2023.
Yeah, well, as you know, I never really bought into the Hudson Card thing, and so I was always kind of like, this is just inevitable. At some point, it was going to happen. Obviously, even when we had like a lot of the information that said a lot of positive things about Hudson, the infamous video that Catch and I do, I'm like, I just gotta see it to believe it, right? And then of course the next day,
yes.
I feel like Sark must have watched the video. Was like, I got something for these guys.
Yeah, the timing of that I don't think was a coincidence, was it? Because
it was
the next day after every media outlet reported, it's looking like Hudson. It's like, oh, Quinn's our starter. Yeah.
which is cautionary tale from a guy who survived Tyrone Swoops. Never deal in the world of absolutes in quarterback races. Right?
I get so much shit on Orangebloods, not quarterback races, but even recruiting, like hedging my bets on where I'm like, hey, it looks like this, but you're not going to hear me speaking absolutes about many things at all, man, because things can change in a hurry, as you and I fully are aware of it.
So when we think about Quinn, right, Jason, we talk about improvement, and like I said, you talked about experience and what another year in the system will be able to do, the talent around him, and then of Sark as well. Let's kind of see if we could quantify what success might look like for Quinn, right? Because we can say it's going to be improved, but we could go to that technical aspect of like, what does improvement look like, and be an extra 400 yards, so on and so forth. So when we start talking about, and let me pull up his stats from last season.
I already did, but yeah,
go ahead, run them by me.
Well, as on the season last year, he was 172 out of 296, attempts for a 58.1 completion percentage, 2,177 yards, 15 touchdowns against 6 interceptions, a quarterback rating on of 132.6, which I looked was actually 5th in the Big 12. So when I said it earlier, he was pretty mediocre across the board. And again, you got to factor in that he did miss a couple games, but he started 10 games, played in 10 games. A lot of the other quarterbacks we're talking played 12 or even 13 games, but he was 6th in yards. He was 5th in quarterback efficiency, touchdowns, 6th in touchdowns in the Big 12 conference. So didn't put up huge numbers last year. So you're right. Improvement almost seems like a foregone conclusion. How much of an improvement maybe would be the conversation we should be having.
Well, let's have it. So when we start thinking of, all right, what do the numbers need to look like for Quinn to lead Texas to a Big 12 championship game? It's just the getting to that game. Let's start from, you want to go from a completion percentage? You want to start there, 58%, 58.1. What would that number need to look like for you to get to that achievement?
And we're talking to get to the Big 12 championship.
Big 12 championship, just getting there, there. So I'm not even saying I'm just getting there.
I'm looking at last year. Max Duggan was at 63%. The K-State quarterbacks aren't even listed because they split up. The leader was Hunter Deckers in the Big 12. He was at 66%, 66.1. Donovan Smith from Texas Tech was also 66.1. Max Duggan, whose team, of course, made it to the Big 12 championship and national championship, was 63.7. What do I think Quinn needs to have to get Texas to the Big 12 championship? I think he's got to be obviously over 60. I think it's got to be, I don't know if he has to be 66, completing 2/3 of his passes, but pretty close. I think 63 to 65%. I think this team is going to be based on Quinn Ewers' arm. And that's the bulk of the offense, is going to be based on Quinn's success, because the running game's still a bit of an unknown. We don't know what the defense is going to be, but I do think statistically, I think the success of this offense is going to be based. Last year you could rely on the run a lot. I don't think they're going to have that luxury this year. I think Quinn's going to throw the ball more. I think he has to be more efficient. So I'm putting it at 63, 65%, that I think he needs to be in that range for Texas to have that kind of season where they get to the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, as you were talking, I wrote down 63%. That ended up kind of being my numbers. I think you and I were right there in the same ballpark. 65% is even way better.
Yeah,
but
that's a 5% jump from 58 to 63. So that's a pretty significant jump. But yeah, yes. I'm right there with you.
So let's talk yardage. Okay, we got 2,100 yards, 2,177. But he's got Xavier Worthy, he's got A.D. Mitchell, he's got Jatavian Sanders, and then there's still got Jordan Whittington, and of course they're going to use the running back in the passing game. The 2,177, and he had a couple of big games in there as well. So that helps out with the numbers. What becomes that number for you for success?
Well, you can do the math pretty easily. He played in 10 games and threw for 2,177. I only played a quarter of one game, but so he's right at 217 yards per game. Check out the big brain on me, huh?
That's pretty good.
10, huh?
Pretty good.
How about that?
Pretty good.
Yeah, but I'm looking. Max Duggan, of course, he played 15 games, threw for 3,700 yards. I guess I didn't realize Dylan Gabriel threw for 3,163 yards.
Wow.
Hunter Deckers from Iowa State was the only other quarterback over 3,000 at 3,044. So, Omar, if we're assuming they're going, I guess, should we factor this on 12 games, or we factor in the big, 12 game regular season schedule? We should probably factor it in on.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Again, man, I think this is going to be. I know Sark loves. He says, "Hey, we're a running game or running team first." He always says that, but I don't know, man. I think it's going to be a pass first offense for Texas, and then to set up the run. So I'm expecting. I said, I'm expecting to throw the ball more attempts per game than he did last year. I think they're going to spread the ball around quite a bit. We're talking 12 games. I'm not saying he's going to average like 300 yards a game or anything crazy like that. That would put him at 3,600. But I think 3,000 yards is a realistic number, and I think he should get there, and I think he will get there, and I think he needs to get to about 3,000 yards to assure Texas of a spot in the Big 12 championship.
So yeah, and just as you were talking, I looked up some of the national guys, right? So Michael Penix from Washington, Jason, last season throws for 4,641 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. I'm just going to Caleb Williams. He was at number 4. Go to a little bit more to notable guys. 4,500 yards, Jason, 42 touchdowns and 5 interceptions.
Maybe you're making me want to raise my number over the 3,000.
I mean,
crazy. Yeah.
This is the Drake May, North Carolina, 43 with 4,300 with 38 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Nobody really so far in the double digits as we're concerned. And just for I'll do 2 more for shits and giggles. Frank Harris, kid from UTSA.
Love him, yeah.
4,063 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. And CJ Stroud, the other notable, he was at 3,688, 41 touchdowns, and then 6 INTs.
And those guys that you're mentioning are all capable, and I guess Quinn is too, probably, but I mean, those guys are popping off, 500-yard games here and there, when they need to. Could Quinn get to 3,600? I think he can, Omar. Would I bet on that? Probably no. I would not bet on it. I think if he gets over 3,000, at that completion percentage and then an efficiency, is efficient with it, I think that gets Texas to the Big 12 championship game.
Let's do a touchdown number. Let's do a touchdown to interception number. We can kind of combine those two, and then we'll get into that super chat that I see that's there. Jason, I just gave you a boatload. Like the guys who are considered elite are throwing 30 touchdowns, 40 touchdowns, in a season. Like you said, you gave me Quinn's numbers, last season, which was at 15. I mean, are we talking at least 30? Like, does 30 have to be the number for you?
Man, those guys that you listed, those dudes are like, obviously the best of the best, right? Again, I'm just looking at conference numbers here.
Which is Quinn is supposed to be in that conversation, right, of the best, correct?
Is he though? Not based off of last year's play. He's not, Caleb Williams. He's not. But
he is a guy that some people believe could be a first round pick.
Sure.
So that's the only reason I mentioned those guys, because then I feel like those are the guys you can compare them against.
Do you know only one quarterback in the Big 12, Max Duggan, in 15 games went over 30 touchdowns? He had 32. Only two guys had more than 20 touchdowns. Duggan
That's
and
crazy.
Dylan Gabriel, had 25. Only two guys in the Big 12 had more than 20. That's crazy to me.
Wow.
I think Quinn, I don't think he's going to get in the 40s, like some of those guys you were mentioning. Again, though, do I think it's possible? Yes. Would I put money on him hitting 40 plus in the touchdown department? No, I wouldn't. But I do think, like I said, Duggan had 32. I mean, that's a lot, man. It's 32 touchdowns in 15 games. Going over 30 is a lot. I don't know if you have it in front of you, if it's sortable, like how many quarterbacks went over 30 touchdowns last year. I'd like to know that.
I can do that. I can do that very.
But I do think 30 is a number that's kind of stuck in my head on, where I think that's a reasonable number for him to hit.
9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I got 14 guys over 30. Jason, with three over 40.
Okay, so I think 30's. You're talking about a top 15 quarterback statistically. Yes. I think that's certainly reasonable. I think it's very reasonable. Honestly, I probably would say if I was setting an over and under in Vegas on something like that, I'd probably have it at like 32 or something, 33 maybe even. So yeah, I think 30 gets into the Big 12 championship game. I think it's more than reasonable. I think that's a pretty good number.
Let me throw this one at you. This would be an interesting one. Where did he just go? Stetson Bennett, Jason, last year, quarterback from Georgia last year, 27 touchdowns, 7 interceptions for him. Average
15 games though, probably, right?
Let's see. Let me go back to him.
In
15 games. In 15 games, right? Yeah. So, I had to see what that looked like from a playoff perspective or something like that. If I said 27.5.
Yeah, if we're, maybe I should backtrack, because if we're talking 12 games here, 12 regular season games.
Yes.
I probably would. I guess I need to factor that in. You're right. You're probably right. I would take the over on more, but I'd probably set my number at about 28 to 30. So, yeah, I need to keep in mind as I'm saying these numbers that we're talking 12 regular season games. So, because 28 would be 2.5 touchdowns per game, right? Well, 24, little less than 2.5 touchdowns per game. So, I think 28, 27.5 is probably a pretty good number as we talk.
Blake, let's do this. I'm going to hit the super chat. Blake, in the chat though, set the line for Quinn Ewers touchdowns at 27.5 and see if you can have them vote on that. Are they going to take the over or the under?
I see Paxton's 4 or less interceptions. Paxton, I don't know what else you're expecting, man. But that's pretty impressive if he goes 4 or less interceptions and puts up some of these numbers we're talking about.
I mean, Pax, that's no pressure, man. Like, golly. I mean, Jason, you and I both know some of those interceptions aren't always on the quarterback.
Exactly. They bounce off a receiver's hands or something.
Yeah. So I mean, that's asking a lot. So we're going to put that in the chat. I want you guys to go ahead and vote on that. And I want to kind of get your point of view. But WTV Breaks says, "Hey, love the show. Watch them all the time. We are going to see a complete Ewers this season, and the run game /D is being slept on due to our loaded wide receiver room. This season is going to be a movie. Hook 'em." More of a statement than anything else at WTV. You are allowed to say that and have that on there. Let me ask you this, though, Jason, and we're going to get back on top of the Quinn in a second. Sleeping on the run game, do you really feel like people are sleeping on the run game, or are they really just stating like, hey, losing Bijan and Roschon, replacing them is just no easy task?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know if I'd consider it sleeping on them. I think people are just being realistic. I mean, it's a natural reaction when you lose 2 elite running backs like that. I mean, listen, I think Jonathan Brooks is a really good player. I think the running game will be fine, but it's going to take a step back. I mean, come on, it can't not take a step back from Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson. Do I think it's going to be a detriment or a hindrance to this team, something that really struggles and sets the offense back? No, I don't think so. I think Jonathan Brooks will be good. They've got enough, CJ Baxter, the freshman, Jaden Blue. They got enough weapons. I mean, honestly, they've got so much depth The biggest question I have is how are they going to divide those carries up? Which guys are going to elevate and rise to the cream of the crop and kind of take control? But, I don't know if I'd say people are sleeping on it. I think it's just a natural, it's like, hey, is Alabama going to take a step back at quarterback after Bryce Young? Well, sure. Come on. He's also number one draft pick. Texas lost the number one running back in the country and a guy that I think wasn't too far behind him in Roschon Johnson. So I don't know if we're sleeping on the running backs. I just think we're kind of tempering expectations, which is a pretty natural response.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that, which is these guys are improving, at this moment. And, again, it's cool. Like the practice notes are good. Jason and I do them like we do them every year. It's part of the deal, but we done it also long enough to know that when the bullets start flying and you have opponents that are trying to take off your head, like it's going to be a little bit different. And to your point, like, yes, losing 2 draft picks, I don't know if we're at a place right now where you're just saying plug and play. Like I don't think we've gotten to the Lincoln Riley quarterback system where you just know the next man up is going to probably be better than whoever it was. So So I think that's why my hesitation would be on the run game, and then of course the D being slept on. And what I would say about that, Dub, is that I don't know if the D is being slept on. I think the D is actually been getting a lot of benefit of the doubt, to be quite honest with you. Probably more so than any other position, especially on the defensive line. You benefit of the doubt as far as Brian Murphy, benefit of the doubt as far as Tavondre and what he can do. It's not to say these guys weren't effective, but we're talking about, over a 12-game period. Like, what does that look like? Some benefit of the doubt, within the linebacker room. And, what does David Bender look like? So I think you're getting a little bit more benefit of the doubt than you may appreciate. But if this season ends up being a movie, well, Jason and I would appreciate that because Jason hasn't covered a season that was movie worthy since the 2005 season, right, Jason?
Yeah, they had a couple of pretty good ones after they were not movie worthy.
More like a horror movie, though.
Yeah, there were some. Yeah, there've been a lot of those, but yeah, we'll take it. You know what? Like people always say, like, well, are you a fan? Do you root for Texas? I'm like, not in that sense. And I went to the University of Texas. Somewhere around here, I got a diploma on, believe it or not. But my mom always gets mad. Like, why don't you hang your diploma? They paid and got it all framed. I'm like, I don't really care about that stuff. But I did go to University of Texas. But from a fan perspective, no. I'm not rooting for them to win. Does it make my job more enjoyable because the message board's more exciting and recruiting's more exciting? Absolutely. For that perspective, yeah, I hope they do have a movie season.
Man, my University of South Florida diploma's up on the wall, Jason, and you went to UT.
I just found mine. If I could move my camera, it's face down. I don't know if you can see that up there. This is my diploma. It's face down.
You must be still paying back student loans if you won't proudly display it. You must have some bitterness.
No. I'm just lazy. I hadn't got around to hang. I've been in this house 10 years and just haven't hung up yet, man. So.
That's hilarious. Chris,
I got to go to the garage. I'm going to get a hammer and a nail and all kinds of stuff. Who's got time for that?
By the way, speaking of garage, I envy people who have empty garages and don't have boxes in it. I strive for that one day, just to put all my boxes in the attic and just have an empty garage that just has tools.
We get 2 vehicles in our garage, but it's 2-stall garage, and we can get 2 vehicles there, believe it or not.
Yeah. Mine's is supposed to be 2. I can only get 1. I got a kid's bike rack on the other side. Okay, that's off topic. If Quinn could just complete 65% with 30 TDs, single-digit interceptions, and 3,500 plus yards, they will win the Big 12. Also, a 1,000-yard rusher would elevate them to the CFP. Okay, let me go there, Chris. Jason, I had no issues with anything he said the first couple of sentences. I thought that was all realistic. And I think you tell me 3,500. Yes, I think they win the Big 12. That 30 TDs, single digits. Yes, he's one of the best quarterbacks. He's the best quarterback in the Big 12, one of the best in the country. My question is, though, Jason, if he gets that and a 1,000-yard rusher, do you think that puts them in a CFP kind of conversation? Not the 1,000-yard guy.
Yeah. Let's just say Jonathan Brooks. Let's say it's Jonathan Brooks is the headliner, and if he goes for over 1,000 yards, along with those numbers by Quinn, listen. The defense has to do its part too. But again, I'm going to keep saying this. If I'm placing a wager, if you're saying you're giving me those numbers that Chris Denman put out there, and Quinn puts up those kind of numbers, and Jonathan Brooks is that successful of a rusher, yeah, I think they're definitely in the college football playoff conversation, and I'd probably put money that they're in the playoff, assuming the defense just doesn't take a huge step back.
Yeah, because those numbers are good. 1,000 yards. I mean, that offense is clicking. Like to your point, like then it can't be some sort of just wild west, old Texas Tech kind of things,
right?
Or even some of those Oklahoma offenses that we used to see that they put up good numbers, they had good rushers, but the defense was just absolutely horrible. But they got by just off a good offense. The good part about that is they still got by. Oklahoma was able to get by without a good defense for a while until they got a good defensive coordinator in there. But that to the point, Chris, 100%. I guess we probably agree with you on that. The last thing, though, Jason, let's talk about the interceptions. Where are we at from an interception number standpoint? I know we're probably, somewhere in that 27-ish to 30-ish as far as touchdowns are concerned. But where are we at as far as INTs? What's a good number for you?
Well, he threw 6 last year, and then I saw Paxton in the chat. I mentioned he said 4, and he said, "Hey, he only threw 6 last year, so that's not unreasonable." We only he's played in 10 games. We're really probably closer to 9 games last year. He had 296 passing attempts last year, Anwar. I'm expecting that number to honestly be closer to 400 this year. I think, again, I think this is going to be a team that is a pass-first team. So I'm expecting those interception numbers to go up. If I'm looking, if I sort it by efficiency, Max Duggan was the #1 efficiency quarterback in the Big 12. He threw 8 interceptions. Dylan Gabriel threw 6. So, Quinn's numbers were relatively low in terms of interceptions, but, he can't go out and throw 12, 14 interceptions. But, I think you can manage. I think this team will be good enough if Quinn throws, let's say, 8 interceptions. He does those other things we talked about, the 28 touchdowns and 3,000 yards and 63% completion. He does those things. He throws 8 interceptions. I still think Texas is in the Big 12 championship game. So, if he goes out and throws 12, 14 interceptions, as Hunter Deckers threw 14, I think that might have been the high in the Big 12. That's a real problem. But if he keeps it at 8 or less, I think Texas is in the Big 12 championship game, assuming he does those other things we talked about.
So let me test your faithfulness level here, Jason. What every one of us has like that person. You can take the Chris Denman thing down, by the way. Thanks, Chris, for contributing. That one person that you joke around with your wife, like, "Hey, honey, if this woman came around, sorry, I'm out." Right? I'm packing my bags. I'm done. It is what it is. Right? So let's use that. Let's start with the Big 12. Are there any quarterbacks in the Big 12 you would trade Quinn for?
Not really. I mean, Dylan Gabriel's really good, and he proved it last year. I mean, he had a couple stinkers, and he was injured a couple times. But when he's on, he can be really good. But in terms of upside, I think those two are pretty even right now, Anwar. But I think Quinn has a much higher upside. So no, it's kind of like the old adage: hey, if there's a senior and a freshman and they're pretty even, play the freshman, right? Because he's got more upside. In the same vein, I think Dylan Gabriel and Quinn Ewers are pretty even in terms of their play. I mean, honestly, Gabriel was probably better last year, but I think they're pretty comparable. And I think Quinn has a much higher upside. So no, the short answer is I wouldn't trade him for any other quarterback in the Big 12.
Neither would I. But in the
I do like the Daniels kid at Kansas that my boy Paxton brought up, though. That he's fun to watch. But again, man, I mean, he's really good and really exciting. But I don't think I'd trade him for Quinn Ewers, not in a Steve Sarkisian offense, especially.
Yeah. I just, the Kansas thing, like I need to see that again. And, and my only thing about Kansas, Jason, is like, I think it ended up being a really great story. But what they start the season off like at 5-1,
5-0 or something crazy like that.
something crazy like that, and then they
You're riding him on Prize Picks every week.
Oh yeah, he was killing it, man, killing it on the Prize Picks, man. That I can't wait for him to be back, and especially like week 1 when they all play like soft teams.
Yes.
Like you talk about taking the more, I'm betting everything on the more for the majority of these guys and hoping they don't get pulled in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Looking for guys who are going to be in like Heisman races and things to that effect, and need the numbers. But the team fell apart when it was all said and done, and without him, and it shows how important he is. And I don't think he wasn't as spectacular when he returned, so it maybe wasn't 100% healthy. Let's go past like let's get past like a Caleb Williams or a Penix or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
If anyone from a national perspective that you would say, you know what, if I had a chance, dot. I'm just testing your faith level here.
I mean, Caleb Williams, obviously. Penix is really, really good, man, and that especially in that offense in Washington where they throw it around so much. Drake May, I mean, you'd trade him for Drake May. I tell you what, man, I love Frank Harris, dude. I think that dude is a baller, man. You guys heard me on Slack talking about him last year, and he's a guy that I loved on Prize Picks. I get it. He's like in his 12th year or something in college or something, like seriously, like 7th or something ridiculous. But in terms of a college quarterback, what that guy can do with his legs and his arm, that guy's freaking phenomenal, man. If your question is, would I trade him for Quinn Ewers? Probably not. But you know what? It'd be awfully tempting with Frank Harris.
So here's the thing, and the purpose of the exercise was this. For the most part, there's probably not a lot of guys you would trade up for. Like
two or three, probably, realistically.
Yeah, and that was it. So then does it the whole getting to the point thing is, does that mean like the expectations that are on Quinn are more very realistic? Because there aren't really guys that you would trade. There's no one in the Big 12 you trade him for. You can only think maybe one or two guys in the nation that you would say, okay, maybe that's a potential upgrade going into this season. But outside of that, you tell yourself, no, you're pretty good. So then does that lead into this is why it should be realistic to have 3,000 yards, 3,200 yards, 30 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, whatever the case may be, because you wouldn't trade it for anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, they're very realistic expectations, but it is kind of weird, Anwar, that we have these expectations, and let's be honest, they're all based on potential. In flashes. We saw flashes of it last year. I mean, the first quarter against Alabama was phenomenal. And like if I look at his game by game stats, he was really well. He put up good numbers against Washington, obviously, and Oklahoma was fantastic. But he had some real stinkers in there too. So, what you're banking on is he's going to be able to bottle up that good and just kind of filter out the bad stuff. But it's all based on potential. Now, why are we giving him so much benefit of the doubt, whereas a lot of other quarterbacks probably wouldn't get as much benefit of the doubt? We're so confident in these numbers. It's a really good question. I mean, again, we've seen flashes of it. And I also think it goes back to people remember him as, what he was as a recruit. He was a generational recruit described as. He was arguably the number one quarterback recruit in the history of Rivals.com rankings. I mean, he was a consensus number one player in multiple classes. When he reclassified, we'll just make him number one in that class too. So, it is based on potential, and that's a little bit risky, man. When you're like sticking your neck out saying, he's going to throw for 3,000 yards and 28 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, and I'm pretty much guaranteeing it because we haven't seen it from him yet. But we're kind of going back to, we know what this kid is capable of. We know what his pedigree is and his recruiting reputation was. But it is a little bit risky. I mean, listen, there's a chance, there's a possibility we could be having this conversation next year. And we're like, man, he was nowhere near those numbers that we thought he would hit based off of his potential. Yeah,
That would be the worst case scenario ever, Jason.
it would, yeah.
If we're having
If
this
he puts up
conversation.
numbers comparable to last year, like, whoa. But I mean, is it impossible? Is that totally out of the question, out of the realm of possibility? Not necessarily. Do any of us expect that? No, not at all. But I mean, it's crazier things have happened. But yeah, we are giving him a lot of benefit of the doubt because, I mean, to say Caleb Williams is going to throw for 4,000 yards, like, oh yeah, of course, we've seen it from him, right? A couple times. To say Quinn Ewers is going to hit these kinds of numbers, we haven't seen that from Quinn Ewers. So we are having to put a little bit of blind faith in that he is going to have significant improvement from what we saw last year.
You don't see, but you don't, for the most part, Jason, you don't see any scenario where there's a question, about Quinn's play, during the game, and where reporters are asking him, why are you sticking with this guy or anything to that effect.
I don't think that's impossible. I don't think that's out of the question. I mean, again, am I expecting it? No. If they go to Alabama in week 2 and Quinn Ewers completes 45% of his passes and 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions, yeah, week 2, I think you'll have some people saying, hey, did you think about pulling him in favor of Malik Murphy? Or possibly Arch, but probably Malik. Is that totally out of question, Anwar? No, I don't think so. Not at all, especially against a team like Alabama. That, week 2 we're talking. So, I don't think he's going to get benched. I'm not expecting that to happen, but is that something that I could see, a scenario where it unfolds like that? Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll get to the super chat question because this is a tough one because
perfect timing. Yeah.
It's a perfect timing for it. It's a tough question because it's banking on, we're talking about someone potentially failing, right? And so because you're talking about someone potentially failing, that means someone's going to get butthurt, and AKA that means I'm going to get a text message from somebody in the next 2 hours pissed off about something that was said on the show, which is fine. That's my Monday afternoon is spent doing damage control anyway. If Quinn struggles against Bama and Maalik plays really well in a win, would you want him to keep the job? And I'm assuming I don't know which him he's talking about. I don't know.
Yeah, I was assuming Maalik, but it could be either, I guess. Yeah.
Yes. So I'll open it up to make it a more broader. And by the way, Greg, you've done nothing wrong. This is just like the English version of us, the grammar guys and this and that, where we're just like, we look at something, it's like which comma so which him is referring to. So we'll go to this. Well, I'll answer your question like this. If Quinn struggles against Bama and Maalik plays well, who should be the starter in week number 3? That versus Wyoming back at home, which one should it be?
I've got what I think is a very easy answer. I actually want to hear your answer, Omar, and then I'll tell you what I'm thinking.
So I'm not okay in this scenario. There's a couple of questions as to like what happened and how it looks, right? So
he said he's talking about Maalik, by the way. So he's just saying would Maalik keep the job? Sorry.
Okay, thanks, Greg. I appreciate the clarification. That's okay. No judgment. I was going to help you out either way, but we can have the conversation either way. So first, it would depend on how it looked for me, right? For instance, when Casey Thompson took over for Hudson Card, the main reason why that occurred was because when the staff went and looked at the film, there was a lot of things that Casey just wasn't seeing. Like he just wasn't seeing the open guys. He wasn't getting rid of the ball. Saw heard footsteps when the footsteps weren't there. And they just said to them, and he's releasing the ball. It was bad. And so they went to that. That's when Sark's like, okay, I can't put this guy back out here because I don't really know if this is going to be good. So if you're telling me it was something like that, which I don't foresee by any stretch of imagination, because I've seen nothing on Quinn's resume that would suggest he would ever be clueless in a game. So if it's just like a struggle and then he came in to win, I don't know if I'd pull the trigger on him at that moment. I would probably still give him like another week. Like I wouldn't knee jerk it, especially he's put so much time and effort into it. Would my leash be a little bit shorter going forward? Yeah, of course. But I don't know if I would just knee jerk it. My only thing, Jason, I'll let you jump in. Since Sark has been here, he's had his quarterbacks have been Casey, Hudson, Quinn, and then with the potential of you talking about Maalik, that's 4 guys in 3 seasons. Just don't know if that's just. I don't think that's the blueprint for success in my book.
No, that's not how championship programs are built. But to answer Gregory's question, I'm just going to paint a scenario. Let's say it's third quarter. Texas is down by 10. Quinn has played not well. He's missed receivers. He's thrown a couple interceptions. And they come out in the third quarter and maybe throws another interception on a bad read. Yeah, you pull him. You put in Maalik. And if Maalik leads that team back to a win and plays really well, I think he's your starting quarterback.
How many times though, Jason? And look, I like Maalik. So just so we're clear, like I like Maalik. I think very highly of him. Clearly not as much as you like him.
Even though he kind of like gave me the Heisman when I saw him down on campus. I was like, "Hey, what's up?" Like, I don't remember you, and I'm like, "Come on, Maalik, it's me, dude. What's up, man?" No, I'm not even basing it off of. Yes, I do like Maalik, obviously, but I just think it's a business, dude. College football is a business, and if he shows you that kind of performance on that kind of stage, and Quinn still has those lingering doubts of whether or not he has taken those next steps, then I think you go with the guy that
Jason, how often have we seen that fool's gold when a backup
quarterback has come in? Yeah.
And the backup quarterback has come in and done good. And what happened is no one prepared for the backup quarterback. No one had really a lot of film on him, so on and so forth. And then when all of a sudden you start getting the film on that guy, things start to change. You know, you had, I believe it was it Swoop started off as a season as a quarterback. Gerard Hurd comes in. All of a sudden, Gerard Hurd look how amazing he looks in the Cal game, right? You say to yourself, "Oh God, like they finally found their guy. Look at what he's able to do." And then teams got film on Gerard Hurd, and by the end, he was super ineffective, and they were back to Swoops at the end of that season. Like that's to me like the cautionary thing is within that scenario. Is that fool's gold or not? Because we've seen that story before, Jason. And when teams have time to prepare, it doesn't always end well.
Yeah, and it's tough, man. You're kind of talking me back from my answer. Initially, it was such a clear answer in my head, but you don't want to get in a deal like Texas has had previously, where you're kind of going back and forth between, okay, then you put in Maalik and he struggles, then what? Then you go back to Quinn, and it's just you have 2 quarterbacks or you have no quarterbacks, basically. But I don't know, man. I mean, like, and again, we're talking in fantasy land here. I do not see that situation unfolding at all. But, if Maalik is playing that well, and if he has a great fall camp coming off a really good spring, and, Maalik has some it factor to him and good leadership qualities, and, I don't know, man, if he proves it to you on the field against Alabama, I think he deserves a right to see what he can do moving forward. Again, do I expect that to happen? Absolutely not. I mean, it's possible. Everything's possible, but I do not expect that situation to unfold.
All right, I'm going to go back to the Bama thing in a minute because actually one of the questions I had written down, but we have 2 super chats. So I want to make sure I get to those, and I appreciate you guys in there. We got 240 people watching right now live. There'll be more in the replay, so we appreciate all you guys. Football Junkie. Appreciate that. Lots of talk about Austin and the DFW that Hill starts on day 1. Have you heard anything? It's talking about Anthony Hill. Jason, I can start with that. It was where was it? I think it was one of the tours that I did. It was Sark being on tour in all the different cities, and it's kind of run together right now because I saw Stark. I feel like in San Antonio and I think it was Dallas or Houston. I've been seeing them different places throughout so I can't remember all of them. Houston, but he had talked about Anthony Hill basically having like a tremendous spring, and he highlighted him for a reason. And and Sark's very deliberate and intentional when he speaks behind the podium. Like he understands that he's speaking not only to the players, but of course to their parents and supporters and everything to that effect. So I very rarely, and Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if I've heard Sark put out a name and pump up a guy that just went away when the season started. We just never heard from again.
No, not really. I'm trying. I don't remember exactly what he said. I don't. Is Anthony Hill a guaranteed starter? He was pretty far down the depth chart in the spring, but the dude is ultra talented. I mean, he's a 5-star recruit for a reason. So I don't know. I almost put that one as that's a good question by Football Junkie. I almost put that one as a coin flip for me. I mean, I think I think he's going to be a starter at some point this year. Is he a starter game one? I don't know. Maybe they ease him in a little bit more slowly than that. It's hard to say though.
Yeah, it's just what he said here, Jason. I was able to find this on Twitter. And when I give you this, maybe it makes a difference. So this is when I was at the Touchdown Club in Houston, Jason. So this is on April the 26th. Sarkisian had said Anthony Hill is going to be a star for the Longhorns while addressing the entire that audience. So he used the word star. Now he didn't say star this season,
yeah,
but he did say star.
Yeah, those are pretty strong words from a head coach. But like, again, does that mean he's going to start first snap, first game? I don't know. That might be asking a lot. I mean, I think he's starting at some point this season, but is he starting literally the first snap of the first game? Yeah, it's hard to say.
Why not against Rice though?
Well, that's true.
If you were going to throw a guy in the fire and give him some reps before Bama, like when did you say I want you to play against Rice a lot?
Yeah, you take a couple missteps against Rice. It's not going to kill you, right? Then you can go over the film and kind of correct it for Bama. Yeah. I mean, it's good points. I can see both sides of it. So I have not heard the chatter that he's going to be a for sure day one starter. I mean, maybe Football Junkies heard some things I haven't. I mean, is he in that conversation? Is it a possibility? You betcha. And is he that talented? Absolutely, of course. But I haven't heard those conversations that, hey, he's probably going to start day one.
My main man, Tom G. What's up? I'm going to text you a little bit later, too, by the way, Tom. What's up, fellas? Eric, hope you're still married after that great weekend. They went down to Eric, El Presidente, went down to Fort Lauderdale and was showing us some of the things that he was doing and being around. So that's where that comment comes. By the way, if wifey's looking, he didn't show us anything of any women. We were just impressed with all the activities there. Don't want to get El Presidente in trouble. But Tom G goes, Quinn throws for 3,500 plus, 30 TDs plus. And I'm assuming it means Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel is a Jag.
Yeah, I agree on Quinn. I don't agree on Dylan Gabriel. When Dylan Gabriel's healthy, he can be a pretty good quarterback.
Yeah. It's one of those ones that I get it because it's Oklahoma, and you have to say that because it's Oklahoma. It would shock you a little bit though, Jason, if we're talking about after Texas OU was 49-0 again, right? I mean, you're not expecting it. I'm not saying you expect Oklahoma to win, but you're not expecting like a repeat of that dominance, are you?
No, absolutely not. And Gabriel didn't play in that game. So, no, it'll be much closer than 49-0. Yeah, you can take that's one thing I will definitively say. You can take that to the bank. Yeah.
Tom G, you're awesome. All right. One of the last things I'll ask you, Jason, we'll wrap up and then we'll do some parting shots, is I wanted to go back to the Alabama conversation because obviously this will be a huge milestone for Texas to go into Bama and pull off that victory. I feel like we've had the conversation before, Jason, where you give Texas a shot. I'm not asking you to do percentages or quantify that because God knows that'll come back and bite you in the ass if you start saying, I give them a 55% shot. We know how 85% can live with somebody for the rest of their lives, right? But what kind of shot do you give Quinn to lead Texas into Bama and walk out of there with a victory?
I give it a really good shot, Anwar. I think I've asked you this before. The spread is like what, 7, something like that. Alabama's 7,
which is ridiculous to me, by the way.
Yeah, I would take Texas in the points in a heartbeat right now. I mean, Alabama, their quarterback situation is a mess. They don't know what they're going to be doing. I mean, Texas has experience. Obviously, Quinn has gained some valuable experience. Alabama's going to be immensely talented. They just are. They recruit too well. But they did lose a lot of talent. Now, it's Alabama. I get it. They can plug and play. And they got 5 stars, littered throughout their depth chart. So they'll be talented, but experience matters a lot, especially at the quarterback position. And Texas has a significant edge there. So, yeah, I don't want to put a percentage on it. I mean, I don't mind. I mean, I think it's probably 55-45 in favor of Alabama winning that game. But if they played that game 10 times, I think Texas wins probably 4, maybe 5 of them. So I think Texas has a great shot being led by Quinn Ewers to win that game.
Yeah, I agree with you too. And one of the reasons why and again, I know it was at home, but yeah, I can't ignore that a really stacked Alabama team came into Texas and looked mortal, for the most part of the day, and that's a lot attributed to what Texas did. Like, it wasn't that Alabama was playing that bad; it was because Texas was playing that good. Like,
Texas defense was lights out that game.
Unreal.
Too. Yeah,
unreal. Like, in fact, I may just
including
watch that game.
Barron Sorrell, and I saw Barry in the chat. Barron was incredible that game. Yeah,
and so it's kind of. When that you can hang with the big dog, and that that bark was a lot worse than the bite when it was all said and done, like your mindset is different. And sure, it's a road game, they're going to be hype, and it's going to be a lot of different things that are going on. Maybe it's a whiteout kind of game, something to that effect. But when the dust settles, the first time Xavier Worthy breaks for a touchdown, everyone gets quiet, and then all of a sudden there becomes a kind of an equalizer that's there. So, to me, that would be the breakout game, the breakthrough game for them. And yeah, it'll be the marquee game of that week. And I give them a very good shot as well. I think, Jason, I think I probably predicted the demise of Bama more than anybody else. And the reason why I've said it is, one, we know that we hear Nick Saban complaining about NIL every single year, right? We know you only complain about things that bother you, right? That really affect you. Like, I don't complain about things in other countries that don't affect me. I don't give a shit, right? It doesn't matter. But there's certain things that are closer to home I complain about because it affects me. That thing affects him. I feel like Alabama's still able to go out and recruit and they're able to get good classes. And I know from probably a star perspective, Alabama probably has the more stars. But I do think Texas has a talented team. Then I do think they have a talented team around Quinn. And I do think they have a team that is able to do it. Now, will they do it? I don't know. But to your point, I give them a very good shot to be able to pull that off as well. All right. Jason, we're almost going an hour. It's been a great conversation. I feel like you were able to get your thoughts out. I didn't get any Amazon shopping done, so I guess I'll be able to work on that. I'm gonna get the kids some lunch and things like that. I'm gonna get you back to that crazy household of yours. Give me your final thoughts. Give me kind of like a parting shot before we get out of here.
Yeah, I'm gonna switch gears. Most people probably know I cover recruiting for Orangebloods, and this weekend and next weekend are going to literally be probably the two most active weekends I've ever covered in 21 years I've been with Orangebloods. Wow, that's crazy. Wow. And these next 2 weekends are going to be the two most active weekends I've ever covered in terms of numbers of official visitors. Now, does that mean Texas is going to walk out with 10, 12, 15 commitments? I don't know. We'll see. And not necessarily. I don't know that that's going to be the case, but in terms of laying the foundation, probably getting some commitments, putting themselves in a position to get commitments in July and even August. These next 2 weekends are huge. I'll be covering it as best I can. I'll be running around like a chicken with my head cut off for the next couple weekends. But stay tuned to orangebloods.com, and our YouTube channel here will have obviously a lot of discussion about it. Huge recruiting weekend coming up for Texas this weekend and next week.
All right. Okay. Well, then, are you guys going to do a recruiting video this week at all, Jason? Is that on the books potentially?
I am. I need to figure out who I'm going to do it with because Ketch is on vacation and Cole Patterson with Orangebloods is transitioning into a new role. So I mean, you and I may be talking recruiting.
I'll be able to give you all the great breakdowns on guys I have no clue about, Jason. Can we just do a Micah Hudson?
Yeah, exactly. We'll do it 30 minutes on Micah.
Yeah, I can talk about Micah like all day long. I got you on that one, Jason. I may fail you with some of the other guys around the state.
And I've for the first time ever, I might actually try to get one of the Texas commitments to come on and join me. I even thought about maybe getting like someone from like the Oklahoma market to talk about their recruiting. I'm gonna have to get creative this week, but yes, I do plan on having a recruiting video.
Well, yeah, I mean, so it gets interesting, and Catch is out of pocket this week. I'll be out of pocket next week. So, I was just thinking like Catch and I usually do like K&A, and I'm flying out of town on Friday. We usually do that on Fridays, and I'm like, I don't even know what we're gonna do with that. Like, and we are running out of bodies, Jason. Like, it's probably about time to get some new bodies in here, but we'll figure it out. We'll make it through. So the modcast will be on Tuesday. Jason will be there. Alex, I assume, is there. I don't know if Alex is on vacation.
I don't think so.
Is he around?
I think he better be. I think so.
So you got Alex. We'll need Alex to contribute. We'll probably throw in a fourth person or so. I'll have Drunk Unk on Wednesday night. Obviously, Jason should have something recruiting-wise with somebody, mystery guest, when it's all said and done. And then, of course, on Friday, we will definitely see that. And, oh, yes, Texas baseball tonight. Did you watch the game over the weekend, by the way, Jason?
Yeah, you know what? I think I need to not watch tonight because game one on Saturday, I watched Almar. They fell behind 5-2. Yeah. It was late night, like 30 minutes daylight left. I said, I'm going to go outside and get this bush in the ground that I've been meaning to plant. And while I'm out there, my phone blows up. They tied it up. So I come back in. I saw them win the game in the ninth. And then last night I wasn't watching, and it was 2-2. And I turned it on, and then the wheels fell off. So maybe I should not watch the game tonight and just get Twitter updates or something. So
just let the baseball guys handle that. But you know what? We'll clearly have a bunch of updates there on Orangebloods as the Longhorn baseball team kind of rounds third and tries to finish here on a high note. So, but listen, for Jason Sukamel, for my main man Blake, who's been producing behind the scenes, for Catch, who's doing something we don't know, and for anybody else on our staff, Jason and I don't even know who's left. We just know it's me and you. So maybe for my perfect franchise, Jason, we're just going to have to start our own thing because I don't know what the hell's going on. But don't forget, Rogue Shop. Use the promo code Orangebloods, again, for all your legal CBD, THC, more. They've got all kinds of things that are on there. Get yourself a good night of sleep, relax, take off the stress. Listen, as a person who's been divorced multiple times, let me tell you, Rogue Shop, when I got to deal with these women, Rogue Shop comes in very, very, very handy. But for everybody behind the scenes and for all you guys contributed to Super Chat, really appreciate you. We will be back on Tuesday with the modcast, same time, same place. Until then, you guys take care.